Thank you very much for joining us this morning for a secure file sharing, content collaboration and compliance in the Irish public sector, Simplified. That's a long title for a simplified webinar, but hopefully we'll be able to deliver the simplified message to you during the session. I'd really like to welcome you all this morning and appreciate your time. And I'm sure, like all of us, we're webinared out to a great degree, but the topic today is very key and very important to all of us, and that's about secure file sharing, to be able to collaborate with people, to be able to work in a collaborative way, but be compliant and deliver security and secure file sharing within that. And these are very, very important elements that we see happening, or issues that we see being raised all of the time, if you like, and particularly in the public sector, because obviously there are all the challenges associated with data protection, etc., and we all understand that those are day-to-day challenges for everybody. What we want to do today is go through the session with, and we've some excellent panelists to join us as well. The structure of the session is, my introduction, thankfully, as you will all say, is going to be very, very short. Then we'll move on to third-party risk and compliance, and we have Owen Kenny joining us from the compliance team, who's going to talk about that. Then we're going to have FileCloud, so Andy O'Gowan and Hakeem are going to come from FileCloud, talk about FileCloud and discuss FileCloud, and just show you very quickly in a demonstration, without being too laborious, but just give you an idea how it actually works. Then we're going to have an open Q&A. So within the Q&A, what we're looking to do is want to make that as interactive for all of you as possible. So please raise questions during the session at any stage. Please raise them, put them into chat, send them on into the group chat, or send them directly onto myself. And we want to make sure that you all get the best benefit out of this that you possibly can. And perhaps, sorry, I don't have control of the slide deck. Maybe on, if you can move on to the next slide there. There is a competition in here, which is quite an interesting one, which is for a remarkable tablet. Now it's quite interesting, because I looked at this and I said, I wonder, does this work? And I believe it really does work. So I must have a look at one myself, and I'll put it on my Santa Claus list. But the interesting thing here is this is to be won by one of the attendees, and if you attend the full webinar, you get one raffle entry, and if you ask questions and get involved during the webinar, there will be 2 raffle entries. And after the event, we will then draw this and send on the details of the winner to you afterwards, once everybody's gone through it. The marketing people have assessed who has done, who has been in, who's engaged, etc., etc. So that's obviously there to encourage your engagement, but I think you'll actually find that the content is also going to really make it worthwhile from your point of view. So all the attendees are muted for the session. The attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions at the end during the Q&A. We are recording the session for those who are, unfortunately, there's some people who are unable to attend, and they will be excluded from the competition which is beneficial for you. But so we want to make that available to them afterwards. So any questions, as I say, enter them into chat or send them directly to myself. And without further ado, I'd like to pass you over to Owen.
Thank you, Michael. So a quick chat about third-party risk and compliance, and how we might manage it efficiently and effectively, and with all things that comes down to planning. So third-party risk and compliance, there's our organization in the middle, and we all know we have third parties that enable us to deliver our services, or whatever it is that we want to do in our departments. Those third parties, of course, are suppliers and vendors, but they may also be other departments that we do business with. So it can get quite complex. The modern world is certainly global, and whether we like it or not, an awful lot of the things that we have come from different places, different geographical regions, and all of those things bring compliance requirements with them. And they also bring security vulnerabilities with them. And these are things that we need to plan for and then manage, which is time consuming indeed. But if we take a logical approach to it, it can deliver quite a bit of benefit. And the most important thing is it reduces the risk of it becoming reactionary. And we all know what reactionary methodologies can deliver. It's painful experiences, both internally and obviously in the media. So a bit of planning is the key to ensuring that it is efficient and indeed effective. So what's a third party? It's any entity that your organization works with, and they can be upstream or downstream. Upstream, obviously, are parties such as suppliers or manufacturers delivering services to us and products to us that we need to use. It can be business partners, it can be affiliates, distributors, resellers, agents, and indeed partners that we may have, or other departments that we may have to work with. But also has downstream parties that are third parties too, and they may be customers or indeed other partners, or again, other departments that we supply into. And all of these different third-party relationships bring with them risks that should and must be managed to ensure that we do not have any negative outcomes. So third-party risk management is a discipline in itself. It's a very, very large area. It is the process of analyzing and minimizing risks associated with outsourcing anything to third-party vendors or service providers. And don't think of outsourcing as we might think of in manufacturing environment, for example, where you get somebody to make a component and bring it in. It's any process or service or otherwise that we do not have the in-house capabilities to deal with, and we then bring in a third party to deliver that. And that could be provision of software, it could be provision of consultancy services, it can be anything that the third party delivers for us that enables us to do our core duties. The issues, of course, that arise with those third parties then is the risks that come. So according to Prevalence 2021 study, 50% of organizations, and that's globally, experienced a supply chain disruption. So that's a third party not being able to do what they were contracted to do due to either a third party data breach, or they had something that was able to stop them being able to deliver their business. According to Forbes, 80% of data breaches now originate within a third party. So in our own organization, 80% of the data breaches that we experience originate within our third parties. And these are very important metrics to bear in mind when we think of the time and effort that will go into ensuring that we can manage these efficiently and effectively, but also with a very good outcome. So bringing that on, there's different types of third-party risks to consider. Cybersecurity risk is obviously the one that tends to come to the forefront of everybody's mind these days, given what's in the media. That very tightly combines with legal and regulatory compliance risk in some areas, but there's also other legal and regulatory risks that don't necessarily link directly to cyber. We have operational risks, we have reputational risk. Reputational risk, of course, can be triggered by a cybersecurity risk or otherwise, but there is that reputational risk. We have a financial risk and then a strategic risk as well. So all of these 6 risks need to be considered when we look at any of our third parties that enable us to do our business. Given that we don't have a very, very long time today, we're just going to focus in on 2, and that would be the cybersecurity and the legal regulatory compliance risks today, and talk a little bit about those. So for cybersecurity risks, it's a very big area, but to think of it like this, third parties are often favored by cyber attacks. So the smaller entities who have less budget to manage their own cyber resilience are often targeted by those bad actors. So they try to infiltrate those supply chain links. And again, when I say supply chain, I mean the third parties that allow us to do our business. And it can be silent because sometimes these organizations don't have the capabilities to identify that somebody has got into their systems and penetrated their defenses. So once they have that, those third parties gaining access to our systems through good business practices that we think we have in place allows those issues that they have incurred to come through into our systems. So the attacker uses that third party as a platform to get into our higher value targets. And this is quite a common occurrence. So these are the risks that we have to bear in mind when we are looking at third parties. It's yes, we want to help the third parties protect themselves, but primarily we want to ensure that those third parties don't create a vector for us to get attacked to. Again, with legal and regulatory, the risk of a third party impacting our compliance is quite high too, because if we think of things like GDPR or data processing, we have to have third parties to do certain things. We need to make sure that they're doing those compliantly. And those third parties are going to have processes of their own. So we need to ensure that the onus is on them, but we also check that that processing is compliant. And we need to make sure that the correct technical and electronic controls are in place around processing data in a compliant manner. It's particularly important for financial, healthcare, and government organizations. There's a higher burden and a higher level of requirement under GDPR against those things, but also the fact that because of our globalization slide, as we said earlier on, while we might be dealing with an Irish or an EU entity that's under GDPR quite a compliant area to be, they may have third parties that are not in those areas, and we need to make sure that data location and data processing and transfer to third countries is done within the law. So things like this are very important to manage, and where we can take more control and put less onus on our third parties through an efficient system, that is a much more effective way of ensuring that we don't have any non-compliances that's going to lead to issues down the line. So how to manage effectively? Well, onboarding is key for our third parties. So understanding their business or what their services they're going to bring to us, and understanding their supplier relationships is very important. It's not just a case of onboard everybody in the same way and put the same onus on everybody. It's a case of making sure that we understand what their businesses are. And for existing suppliers that so many of us will already have, we need to rank them based on risk. We only have a certain amount of resources, we only have a certain amount of time. So we need to look at those based on criteria, and that might be, are they EU or non-EU? Are they processing personal or sensitive commercial data or not? Are they under any specific applicable regulations that we need to consider or not? And we need to create risk profiles for our third parties that we can then help us focus our areas. And then we focus on the highest risks. So taking a risk-based approach then, we have ourselves in the middle and we see our profile of third parties that are there. So we can risk rate them, and here's our red ones. These are the high value, high risk third parties that we need to focus on, and we need to look at exactly how we're going to manage that information, put restrictive controls against certain data, and put maybe more onerous clauses into our contracts and agreements. The amber ones then, less so. We need to have a higher level of controls, but we might not be as onerous. We might have more flexible access to data, etc., given the profiles of what they might be. And green, we might just treat as standard suppliers. We may not have any higher level risk controls, etc., that go into those. And a very short anecdote to explain what I mean here. Personally, I was involved in a project a number of years back, and there was a one-size-fits-all, and it was with an Irish State Department that we were working with. There was a one-size-fits-all to approve a supplier into data access. And at this point in time, we needed access to a single shared folder for non-sensitive data, non-personal data, just generic departmental data that we were helping on a project. It took 12 weeks to get approved for access to the data. And in the meantime, the stakeholders on the other end were frustrated. So they created a simple Dropbox and they used that for the project. Now, there was no inherent risk there. Everything worked out okay. But that could easily have been very sensitive data. And the workaround to use Dropbox is a very bad practice, but it was forced on the basis that there was a one-size-fits-all, no risk-based approach to any data access by anybody ever. And while that seems like we have the maximum level of protection for everybody, what it really means is the day-to-day people are going to find workarounds. So a risk-based approach is a much more appropriate and much more effective way of ensuring our protections. Last slide here, guys. Managing effectively is focus on the information, not so much the suppliers or our third parties. The third parties will work with the information. So if we set rules around particular types of information, geolocation of our data, what the GDPR aspects are of that, and we identify categories of information that are in our business that we need to grant access to, if a third party then has access to any of those data sets, we know what level of controls to implement against them. So we're not assessing each individual vendor specifically on their own merits, we're assessing them on the access and the processing that they need to have against our information. And if we look at that basis, then we will minimize the amount of effort that we have to put in, but we will be able to maximize the amount of effectiveness against the ones that have the most difficult time with our most sensitive assets. So that's the key thing I would give you as regards managing effectively, is focusing our time based on risk. That's it in summary. As I said, it's a very big area. Feel free to reach out if you ever need to. My contact details are there. But for now, I'll hand you back over to Andy.
Sorry, can everyone hear me now?
Yes, Andy.
Great, thanks, Owen. Thank you very much for that really insightful presentation, Owen. Good morning to everyone and welcome to the FileCloud portion of today's webinar. I'm Andy, the EMEA Channel Partner Manager, and I'm going to kick off with a quick introduction to FileCloud as a company. So we were founded in 2010 by a team of software engineers, and in 2012 was the year of the first generally available release of FileCloud version 1.0. We're a privately held company that took on its $30 million A round of funding in December of last year. Our global headquarters in Austin, Texas, with our EMEA headquarter here in Limerick, where I'm coming to you from this morning. We have over 120 employees globally with plans to reach about 150 by the end of next year. And FileCloud has more than 1 million users worldwide and over 3,000 customers, 92% of which would recommend us to a friend. Enabling and simplifying compliance is a cornerstone of the value we bring. So, for example, GDPR, ITAR, HIPAA, FINRA, data residency, FIPS, NIST, the list goes on. And today we're going to take a look at just how easy FileCloud makes it for our customers to become compliant. So among our public sector clients around the world, we can count the likes of the US Department of Defense, the US Navy, and the US Army Corps of Engineers. So we like to think we're doing something right in terms of security and compliance. And here in Ireland, starting with the Office of the Government CIO, who now recommend FileCloud when asked about secure file sharing and content collaboration platforms, there are over a dozen government departments, public bodies, and local authorities using our solution, mainly to address their requirements for a secure platform to share and collaborate on sensitive content with both internal and external parties, but also to simplify their data governance and compliance strategies. More on that and on, but first let's take a look at just what is FileCloud. So this is what we do in a nutshell, and let's provide an optimized, ready to deploy enterprise file sharing and content collaboration platform for any on-prem and private cloud infrastructure, enabling a high degree of security and control over your most sensitive content. And that last part is really key. FileCloud and our customers know that not all content is created equal. And this is thoroughly reinforced by the number and complexity of regulatory frameworks out there that mandate the protection of both data and privacy, with potentially very nasty consequences for those organizations who are judged to be non-compliant. No doubt, most of you will think of the likes of Dropbox and Box and Ignite and OneDrive and even SharePoint when you hear the phrase file sharing and content collaboration. But many customers, those in the public sector being a prime example, but you could certainly also include pharma and life sciences, healthcare, aerospace and defense, manufacturing, R&D, multinationals, banking, financial services, various others. And these are all precluded from using public cloud-based solutions like those for file sharing requirements due to issues like data residency. So, where your data is physically located. And just as importantly, concerns about the security of their most sensitive data in the public cloud. And on top of that, there's a whole industry that has sprung up around cloud security that places a heavy burden of complexity on what can be already very stretched resources within a public sector IT department. And FileCloud eliminates all of those issues. So let's take a quick look at how. So on the right is an overview of the typical file sharing and collaboration scenario from an IT perspective. And on the left are some of the shared resources that come into play when using a public cloud service. I've already mentioned some names, but there's a plethora of consumer-oriented public cloud-based solutions out there, the use of which entails inherent risks, namely the complete lack of control over where your data is physically located, data residency, and vulnerability to data leakage because of shared resources such as the ones listed here. And because FileCloud is deployed as a software layer on top of your existing file server or cloud storage infrastructure, we effectively extend that internal IT security perimeter to encompass the external user. So your files remain exactly where they are, while the FileCloud solution, fully integrated with your IT setup in terms of firewalls, antivirus softwares, in-house systems, or whatever else, handles all of the sharing and collaboration with extremely fine-grained access controls that are 100% customizable. And you can even easily import existing users and assign them to security groups based on existing Active Directory and NTFS permissions on upload. So basically, it's the best of both worlds, a familiar consumer-oriented user experience that looks and feels just like a public cloud-based service. And we'll get a good look at the FileCloud user interface during the demo later, but without the concerns around data residency, security, and compliance. On top of that, this architecture can also support your remote or hybrid workforce, giving them the full office-based experience when it comes to file sharing and collaboration from anywhere on any device, but without the need for a VPN. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because the key point is really just to make you aware that there are two flavors of the FileCloud solution. FileCloud Server, which is deployed on-prem or in a private cloud or both, and FileCloud Online, which is the fully managed, fully hosted version that's run by FileCloud in a single-tenant sandboxed environment on AWS in the geo region of your choice. You can see the typical benefits here, and it shows how our focus as a company is on making life easy for the user, allowing them to easily complete the file and document-related tasks that they need to do for their job, and the IT department by simplifying how they can make the organization's data both secure and compliant. Okay, and now let's move on to focus on how FileCloud can help you measure your path to compliance in days rather than weeks or months. So this slide covers 7 steps. It may be fewer for some organizations, of course, depending on the complexity of their data governance and compliance needs. But these are all of the relevant pillars of a good data governance framework that the FileCloud solution can support. In orange is an overview of the actual FileCloud features or the steps as seen from the IT perspective, while in green is the perspective of an end user. And we could include in that a data protection officer or a compliance manager, for example. And a quick definition of the word metadata is simply a set of data that describes and gives information about other data. So looking at the first step here, metadata set creation. So the FileCloud solution allows the IT admin to utilize strong metadata management capabilities to classify files using tags, keywords, custom metadata sets, etc. And from an end user perspective, then a metadata set is created for documents marked as confidential. So for the purposes of this slide, we're just going to imagine that somebody has done something as simple as writing the word confidential in the document. And we move on then to smart content classification. So this applies automated metadata for better organization and security. Search patterns make identifying, for example, personally identifiable information simple and easy. And the FileCloud smart classification feature is smart enough to identify typical metadata sets like payment card information automatically. And from an end user perspective, then documents that have been marked as confidential have been uploaded, and the solution will associate them with that metadata set, aka the attribute confidential, and now certain rules will be applied accordingly. Obviously, another major pillar of data governance is data leak prevention, or DLP. So smart data leak prevention in the FileCloud solution provides protection throughout the data lifecycle. Simple, flexible, rule-driven smart DLP system enables admins to closely control the degree to which users can access, edit, download, and transfer. And from an end user point of view, you could remove public access, for example. So if the DLP policy denies it, FileCloud Smart DLP will prevent a user from externally sharing the document marked as confidential or sending it to external organizations. So even inadvertent sharing through simple human error is protected against. Data retention then also key to data governance, of course. So retention policies that you can set up in FileCloud will allow you to block specific actions, for example, uploading, downloading, deleting, syncing, whatever it may be, on any files and folders. And you can specify what happens when the policy expires. And from an end user perspective, it could be, that no deletion is allowed. So the retention policy disables a user's ability to delete any of those files marked as confidential. And in this example, documents are then moved to archival status when the policy expires. So that could be one choice that you make in terms of an action when the policy itself expires. The compliance dashboard, then, this is a great feature of FileCloud. So it's the compliance center makes navigating the complex standards really easy. System admins can follow FileCloud's built-in checklist-based interface for best practices around ITAR, GDPR, HIPAA, etc., and apply the necessary security and sharing settings in order to be compliant with those frameworks. And of course, then from the end user perspective, they are compliant with GDPR, requiring the companies ensure files with protected information have not been shared inappropriately. And on the next one, then we have the monitoring governance with SEAM. So the governance dashboard within the solution displays retention alerts as well as retention and DLP statistics to help you keep track of retention policies and violations of DLP rules. You can imagine how great that is for the likes of data protection officers and compliance managers to be able to access that kind of easy reporting. So as we see in the end user perspective below, you can monitor all of those alerts, every single what, when, who, how action is audited and is reportable, and all in one central place for ease of security management and complete protection. And then in step 7, we have digital rights management. So the FileCloud DRM functionality protects intellectual property and sensitive data by requiring that they be viewed through a secure viewer that can block downloading and printing or even hide portions of content. So that's actually restricting what is visible on the recipient screen. And the file is downloaded in a document container and accessed with a key. So as an end user, you would have view-only access when you export a document, and you must view it through the FileCloud secure viewer using that access key. So there you have it, really, a complete compliance and data governance strategy based on something as simple as adding the word confidential to a document. Obviously, you could apply the same strategy to payment card information, personally identifiable information, protected health information, etc., etc. But wait, what if disaster strikes? So after a late night of meetings in Leinster House, civil servant from the Department of Health goes to Copperface Jack's for a well-deserved break, but loses his mobile phone containing sensitive PHI. Well, FileCloud has you covered. Thanks to the FileCloud application, the system can perform a remote wipe of any and all FileCloud data stored on the phone. So even if it falls into the wrong hands who manage to unlock it, the data is no longer available on the device. So as you see there from an IT admin, you have, in addition to blocking a client device from logging in, the administrator can also wipe the FileCloud folders from the remote device. And from an end user perspective, if they don't happen to be connected at the time, the block and the remote wipe will happen when it tries to log into the server. So I'm almost done. But there is one last point I'd like to make. I've talked several times about how FileCloud's core values, the simplification of the complex world of secure file sharing and data governance and compliance. So I think it's important to highlight that in real world terms, what FileCloud can actually do is transform your existing legacy file servers and cloud storage environments into a modern, secure, enterprise-grade file sharing and content collaboration platform without any changes to your existing infrastructure. So that's a lot of digital transformation advantage for very little expenditure. And our pricing is based on a per user per month license with various tiers to suit your particular organization and requirements. So that's it for me. And now it's time to get a proper look at the solution itself and that familiar public cloud type user experience that I mentioned to you at the top. So I'm delighted to hand you over now to my colleague Hakim Ababsa, one of our EMEA-based account executives, who's going to give you the product demo. So over to you, Hakim.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Screen one. Yeah, here we are. So thank you, Andy, for this presentation. And as you said, FileCloud is, of course, highly secure with all the security features that we have, and also is very simple and easy to use. So let's start with the user interface. So this is the user interface, which means that once the user has access to his FileCloud, then he can connect to through the web interface. So of course you can change the logo, you can put your own logo and your own background, and also we support many languages: Arabic, French, English. Of course, if you are dealing with international customers or international partners, multilingual solution is also important. So once I log into my FileCloud, I will be able to access 4 main folders. So my files, which is my personal storage space, and then we have team folders, which is really useful when it comes to team collaborations. And as you said, Andy, you have also the network share that you can integrate with your Windows file server or your company server. And then we have the shared with me. Of course, just to focus on the security and the compliance aspect of FileCloud. So in FileCloud, as an admin or as a manager or as a decision maker, you decide who can access your FileCloud. So here I am an employee, internal employee, and I have access to some team folders. But of course, I don't have all the same permissions within those folders. For example, if I check the Salesforce team folder, I can see that I have only the read-only permission. I cannot edit, I cannot sync, I cannot share. And if I check the sales team folder, see all the permissions that I have. So you have these permissions. Depending on the permissions given to you by the admin or the manager, you will be able to perform some actions. So this is from the user interface, and again, this is really easy to use. We have an excellent feedback from our, especially government users. They like FileCloud because they don't spend a lot of time trying to share, trying to edit, or trying to collaborate. Everything is simple. You don't have to spend a lot of time to learn about FileCloud. So just before moving to the admin interface, because we don't have a lot of time, let me show you a quick sharing options in FileCloud. Okay, so remember, because I have the permission to share, this is important. So I have the permission to share, I can share a folder. So in FileCloud, you have 2 types of sharing, or 2 sharing options, if we can say that. So you have the public share here, and we have the private share. Many of our customers, especially in the government sector, financial institution sectors, etc., they disable the public share. They want their user only to share privately. So this is the first point when it comes to security, because you decide whether it will be a private share or a public share. This is important, because when you share privately, you know who can access your folder, which means that I can share it internally with my colleague Wael, for example. Here I can add Wael. Wael is my internal colleague, so I can add him to this share. And I can also share it external to our customer, to our company. For example, I can add Andy, for example, just a random email like Ireland, for example, .com. So as you can see, Andy is not registered. Let's say Andy is a partner or client, then I need to share with him a file or folder. So Andy will receive an email notification saying that Hakim has shared with you an important documentation. So once Andy will connect to his FileCloud, remember, Andy is not an internal employee, he is an external user. He will see only shared with me, okay, with the permissions I have given to him. So he will be able to download or not, or to share or not, etc., etc. So this is important within FileCloud. So this is from the user interface. There are a lot of security features to share securely, whether internally or externally. This is the first one. Also, we have a good feature, which is workflow automations that will help you, secure your data and also be compliant. For example, you can create some automatism, if we can say that, on a share activity. Let's say, for example, you are saying to your FileCloud, if a share is created or updated, let's say on this path, for example, in this all files, let's go to team folder, and let's say to this sales team, for example. Okay. So I'm saying to FileCloud, if a share is created or updated within the sales team folder, I need a share approval. Who is gonna approve the share? Let's say Henry, our manager. Okay, which means that if a share is created, then Henry needs to approve this activity or this share. Okay, so you have from the user interface, you have these features, when it comes to sharing, collaborating, editing documents. Remember, it depends on the permissions given to you by the admin. Okay, this is important. So now let's go back to the admin interface. Okay, log in to the admin, and I will show you the different points presented by Andy. Okay, accept terms of services. Okay. So really quick on the dashboard, admin dashboard, you have here, quick statistic about your system. So you see how many users you have. You have the full users, the guest users, and the limited users. This is important because you decide who can access your FileCloud, whether you give them a full access or guest access or limited access. So everything is, it depends on the permissions given by the admin or the decision maker. Okay. Then we have also an important point when it comes to compliance and security is the access locations. Within your FileCloud, I'm accessing from Algeria, I'm connected from Algeria, and within your FileCloud, you can create a rule saying that I would like only users from Ireland to connect to my FileCloud. If someone from France or from Spain try to connect to your FileCloud, your system, he will not be able to do so. And this can be done through the DLP. Remember the data leak prevention presented by Andy. You can limit specific or certain IP addresses in order for within your system. So I would like only users from Ireland or from another country to connect to my FileCloud. Okay, this is the first point. Also regarding the audit logs. So within your FileCloud, you are able to, so it's coming, yes. So as an admin, you can see what is happening within your system. So for example, let's say I would like to check all the deleted actions within my system. So I can see that Hakim deleted just now a file as an admin, or Hakim has an issue. I can see that Hakim has an issue with his sync application because it is always failed. So I can contact Hakim and see what is happening. Or within the audit log, you can also check, for example, actions by specific user. For example, I can see all the actions where Wael is concerned. So I can see which IP address, which agent, etc., etc. So you have this audit log that is really appreciated by our gov and financial customers. Okay, so now let's talk about the governance part. So this is important because, as Andy said, with the governance part, you will be compliant, or you will meet compliance without any difficulties, if we can say that. So you have this dashboard where you can see, the retention policy, the data leak prevention rules that you have, the compliance that you met, regarding GDPR, HIPAA, or ITAR, etc. So you can, for example, from here create a policy. For example, in order to meet with let's say HIPAA requirement. There is a requirement in HIPAA that say that you need to retain files for 6 years. So you can create a retention policy directly from here and set some some rules in order to meet some compliance. For example, HIPAA or ITAR, etc. So this is a retention policy, and of course, during this webinar, we cannot show you all the different steps, but we can have all the stations, configuration station where we can show you some configuration, and also to help you configure your FileCloud during a free trial, during a test period. Then we have the smart data leak prevention, and as Andy said, it works with the smart classification. So you have smart classification and you have smart DLP. With those features, you can protect sensitive files from being downloaded or from being shared externally. For example, let's say you have a file that contains social security number or credit card number or driving license number. So with smart classification, you can create a pattern group here. And depending on your objective, by setting, for example, social security number, credit card number, anything like that. And FileCloud will automatically classify those documents that contains such information. For example, social security number, anything like that, and then apply a DLP rule on those documents, which means that if a user, even if he has the permission to share, is trying to download or is trying to share a sensitive file protected by a DLP rule, then he cannot do so, of course. And as an admin, you will receive a notification that Hakeem or Wael or Andy has violated rule XYZ on DLP rule. So this is also important when it comes to compliance and protecting users, protecting data, etc. Another point I'm checking, the point discussed by or presented by Andy. We have also the compliance center, and the compliance center enables you to check which regulatory requirement your system meets and which it fails to meet. For example, here we have ITAR, we have HIPAA, and we have GDPR. I can see that if I click on GDPR, and I can see that it is enabled. So the system will give me, some issues. For example, I have an issue with Article 32. Okay, I need to configure the storage encryption in order to meet this rule. Okay. So from here, so the system will give me, the steps in order to enable storage encryption and for me to meet the Article 32 rule. So with the Compliance Center, you have a complete vision on the compliance, on the different regulations, whether it is GDPR, HIPAA for the US, and ITAR also for the US. We have also, as Andy said, you have the online version and you have the server version. So whether you go with with the solution with the server, you host completely your data. You have a complete control over your data. And many of our government clients, they have chosen the server version and they are happy. Of course, we know they are happy. Why? Because they are expanding to other departments. And we have a lot of customers coming from public cloud providers to FileCloud in order to meet data regulation, data residency regulation, data sovereignty. And as Andy showed us, within the Irish government, we have an excellent reputation when it comes to file sharing solution. It is simple to use, but it is highly secure, and you have a complete control over your data. This is important. And we have the same success in North America, in Asia, and in the Middle East as well. We have large ministries using FileCloud, and we can say that thousands of users are using FileCloud to edit, to share, and to collaborate securely on a daily basis. So this is important when it comes to compliance, security, etc. So as you can see here, a lot of features are available, which means a lot of value can be provided by FileCloud. And that's why we provide a free trial period. You can test FileCloud during 2 weeks or 1 month. And during the trial period, you have a complete access to our different teams. We can have configuration sessions. We can have also technical sessions in order to help you configure certain functionalities, and also to help you, to show you how FileCloud can meet your objectives. And today, as Andy said, a lot of customers, financial institutions, healthcare organization, education, universities, government are using FileCloud. They're coming from public cloud providers to FileCloud, of course, because of, we have an excellent pricing strategy, and also because of, compliance and easy to use and security, etc. So I need to stop here, but of course, as you can see, there are a lot of features. We can discuss this during other sessions. We are, I believe Andy and Michael will share some links and some emails in order to have all the sessions. So guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, whether about configuration or compliance or security. We'd be happy to help you and to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Hakeem. That was excellent, and I love the enthusiasm and wanting to get into the more and more options that can be shown, which are there's a lot that can be done. So what we're going to do is open for questions and answers, and I'd invite the panelists to put on their cameras so you can see how good looking or bad looking you really are. I'll exclude myself from that list, but anyway, I'll ask the attendees if they've any questions and I have received a number of questions during this, and there's some more coming in. But what we want to try to do is make this as interactive so that your questions get answered and that you get the benefit of it. But firstly, I'd just really like to thank everybody for the presentations. I think there's a lot of simplifying there in terms of what we've talked about, which I think has been really excellent. A question that's here, and it says, does FileCloud have a restore feature where if an employee leaves the organization, any files they had on their laptop, any files they had on their laptop, drive, account that may contain information necessary to continue processes after they leave, can they be recovered?
Yes, this is possible. And Wael, are you with us, Wael?
Yeah. Hello, guys. How are you? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If we can just give more details on this, from a technical perspective, I can say.
Okay, so if I understand correctly the question, so when a guy leaves the company, they want to be able to delete files from their desktops or maybe like mobiles, right?
Yes.
Yes, but if somebody has left an organization, any files that they had on their laptop may have contained information that they may have deleted during their time there. So if they had deleted some files, can they be recovered afterwards? I think that's what the question was, to be honest with you, but perhaps.
Yeah, so if, for example, let me explain. When you have a FileCloud account, you have a personal space inside FileCloud, which is my files in this case, and there is also a team folder space, right? So if the deleted files were in my file space, there will be like a recycle bin for each user, which means that the files are really not deleted from the FileCloud interface. They are moved to the recycle bin, and of course you can restore them. There is a duration, everything is configurable here. There's a duration where they can define how many days the file stays in the recycle bin before they get like fully deleted. So otherwise you can keep them forever in the recycle bin. This is unless it's manually deleted from the recycle bin. So this is an option possible. Same applies for team folders, where when a file is deleted by a user inside a team folder, which is the shared space, the file is moved also to the recycle bin of the team folder. Okay, the admin can recover the files from the recycle bin of the team folder, which is, as I said, as a collaboration space for different users. Okay, does it answer your question?
I believe it does, but we'll wait. I've passed that back to the person who raised that question there. Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah, this is a fantastic presentation. Thanks everybody. And yeah, that does answer. Thanks a lot.
even my convoluted way of explaining it. But anyway, moving on. Excellent. I have a couple of other questions that have come into me as well, and I'll just throw them out generally, and perhaps everybody can respond back to them or take it whichever way. How difficult is it to migrate users onto the FileCloud platform?
Yeah, I can take that one, Michael. So it's easy is the answer, I suppose. But with FileCloud, you've got multiple possibilities to manage your user accounts and import them. So, for example, you can use a CSV file, you can integrate with Active Directory or LDAP, or enable single sign-on. So, you could import a list of users and define the type of accounts that can be created for each user using that CSV file, or even define group membership during the import process. And with Active Directory integration, user accounts are authenticated against an external Active Directory server. And accounts with this type of authentication are also known as external accounts. And with this method, you have the possibility to import users and enable sync between an Active Directory group and a FileCloud group. With LDAP integration, user accounts are authenticated against an external Active Directory server, and single sign-on, that permits a user to authenticate once to a third-party identity provider. And then FileCloud supports multiple types of SSO integration, including SAML, ADFS, NTLM.
So that's the short answer. Excellent, yeah. Andy. Thank you very much. I think that should cover that. Can I just on that, because there is a question here about external users. So external users, do they require a FileCloud license in order to access the platform?
No, they don't. So FileCloud, during Hakeem's excellent demo there, we saw full, guest, and limited. So FileCloud offers free limited accounts. So AKA external accounts, I suppose, for clients, external vendors, partners, etc. So those external accounts are superior to the password protected shares offered by some FileCloud competitors, because they can also view, upload, download content shared with them, and they have limited access via a web browser. So there's no limit to those, what we would call limited accounts. You can have as many of those as you like for free. With FileCloud, we're just licensing the actual users within the customer.
Yeah, and just to add it to what Andy said, they can see only what you share with them. So they don't have personal space. This is like you share with them something, and then they will be able to see it. Yeah.
Excellent. A question here about cloud platforms. What cloud platforms is FileCloud compatible with?
I guess we're fairly cloud agnostic. So nearly all of them, I suppose. The hosted and managed version of FileCloud Online, is on AWS, and we also have a specific AWS GovCloud version, which is the US federal compliant cloud platform, and both FileCloud Online and FileCloud Server can and do work in AWS, in Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba, etc. We integrate with cloud storage environments like Azure Blobs and S3 buckets, Wasabi, and various others. Whale might have a good technical addition to that answer as well.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, FileCloud is a cloud agnostic. It can be installed on a bare metal environment, virtualization environment, cloud, whether it's like AWS, GCP, Azure, Alibaba Cloud, you name it. So, and it supports different types of storages. It can be SAN storage, NAS storage, it can be HDD, S3 storage, object storage, Azure Blob storage, Google Cloud object storage, so you name it. So we have multiple types. Yeah.
The shorter question is, what doesn't it work on, is it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm just conscious of time, and I really appreciate everybody taking time. And I know in the land that we live in, everything has been in half an hour and 1 hour slots. So I'm conscious of that. There's a question here as well, which says, can you select Ireland only? Sorry, can you select only Ireland as a region where files will be stored in FileCloud?
Yeah. So I guess the short answer is yes, absolutely. Especially if you're deploying a FileCloud server, it's on your own file server on-prem. So wherever those file servers are, is where those files are going to be located.
And
yes.
And from end user perspective, you have what we call data leak prevention rules, where you can limit logins from your users only in Ireland. So you can specify the country your users will be able to log in only from Ireland. Yeah.
Can I just perhaps bounce that as a sub? This is my sub question, if you like, or comment to Owen. Just for a quick comment on that. I guess that's pretty critical in terms of compliance operating in a public sector within a country and within something like the EU as well.
Well, yes, of course. Based on risk, it's not something that I would consider applying carte blanche across the organization, but based on the type of data that's being processed or the specific needs for it, if indeed you have geolocation requirements to comply with and you want to manage those things, that feature is essential to ensure that and show an auditable trail against it. But there's many features and many controls available in the platform. And I've only seen some of them today, but I'm sure there's more. Like, the key thing is turn them on when needed and don't let them become a risk when not.
Sounds excellent advice. There's one other question here. What storage limits do you apply to users?
Again, that depends on the solution. So we mentioned the two flavors, online or server. So if it's FileCloud server, it's your storage. You decide how many file servers or cloud storage environments or whatever you're going to deploy the solution on. So theoretically, it's unlimited storage. And then with FileCloud Online, the fully managed and hosted version, there is a 1 terabyte storage limit plus personal storage allowance per user as well.
Excellent. I'm conscious of the time, and we're just coming to the end. I guess what I would say is, look, I think that's covered the questions that I have at this stage. I'd really like to thank the panelists for, I think, an excellent simplification and tidying up for somebody as simple as me, and making it intelligible, but hopefully for the rest of the attendees as well, because I think it's really important that, and we see it right throughout the whole cyber world, if you like, that technologies and solutions need to be workable and usable, because if they're not workable and usable, then they're not really a solution. And I think that's really a key part of what we've seen today. We will follow up this with the draw for the remarkable tablet, and even though I really am very interested and I'd like one, I'm excluded, as are all the other people who presented today. So I'll have to, as I say, I'll have to get on to Santa Claus and see what that happens, but how that goes, but we'll worry about that one. But listen, thank you very much for everybody participating today. Really appreciate your time, and you've got about 1 minute or 30 seconds back of your life now before the next call or whatever it may be. Listen, thank you very much, and thanks to all the presenters.
Thanks, everyone.